Okay, hello everyone. It's Dr. Anthony Chaffee here. Today I have a special guest, Bold Carnivore, my buddy Matthew, and we will be talking about carnivore diet as usual. Matthew has several questions that have come up, so he wanted to ask me about those, and then we'll take other questions from the crowd if we have time as well. So we'll probably be here for about an hour and get to as much as we can. Matthew, thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Wow.
All right. So, what are some of your questions?
Okay, wait. I got them over here. I gotta stick at them because me in my mind. Okay. So, first up, yeah. What is your sleep schedule like? Because we had an email session once, and you were awake at like 12:30 at night. I was like, dude, you're awake.
Well, it's just all over the place with work. And so, sometimes I'm working overnight and sometimes I'm just working until very late. Other times I get home from work and then I have different meetings and interviews or consultations that I have to do. So that can end pretty late. And then I have, work that I have to get to and that can go pretty late as well. So it's pretty all over the place, but I try to prioritize sleep, but that's not always possible, unfortunately. But when I do get sleep, I get very good sleep. Recently, I used to sleep horribly, but then went carnivore, and I've been much, much better since.
Nice. So before going full carnivore again, because I know that you were carnivore before, and then you had a stint where you weren't carnivore, right? And then going back to it, improved your sleep patterns or just the quality?
Probably both. I mean, it used to be very difficult for me to get to sleep in the first place. I mean, my sleep habits and patterns were generally regulated by my schedule. So I would definitely want to be asleep or try to go to sleep. But if I had too much going on, I just had to get everything done. And then obviously when you're just sort of, young and you're on like summer break or something like that, you're just, up all night, going out and doing things, So, but when I was carnivore in my early 20s, I wasn't really drinking either. So I still had a pretty normal sleep schedule. I slept pretty well, but that was probably just to do with my schedule. It was just very hectic. I was in university, and then I was training with rugby, all the rest of the day, and so I'd get home pretty late and just need to do some reading or some homework and then go to sleep and do it again because I just really didn't have time for anything else.
Okay, so on this one, I may be behind the curve because your regular friends may know this one already, but I found something online that said that you began medical school when you were like 15 years old. Is that accurate?
No, not medical school. I went to university when I was 16. I started college when I was 16. Yeah. No, but then I took actually a long. Yeah, so that was the thing, I was sort of ahead of the game there, and so that's why I felt I could take some time off and pursue rugby and really enjoy that and concentrate on that for a while because I started early, I finished early, and then I thought, okay, well, why don't I just take a bit of time and see what rugby has to offer, and then I ended up playing rugby at a sort of a high level for like 10 years until I ended up going to medical school. So I took a lot more time than I had sort of caught up. So I did end up going to medical school late. I ended up going. I started. The application process just takes forever. So it's just there's a lot of preparation, getting all your ducks in a row, and then you apply. 1 year for the next year's admissions. And so it's a long process, but I ended up starting medical school when I was 29. So it was, I started college early, but I also started college late in some ways.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I know you were playing rugby at a top level, and I know that you've had some injuries on the field, but how about your legs? Have you ever had a leg injury?
I broke my right leg just around the ankle. So I had a sort of unstable fracture of my distal right fibula. I ended up, still playing on it, which was not great. I remember Well, it was actually an intentional. So someone had grabbed my leg when I was sort of tackling, and just sort of, did it like an crocodile roll, and just tried to break my leg, and he succeeded. And that was in a championship game up in British Columbia, Canada. We're playing a team up there, and it was in the finals, and they hated us. The Canadian teams in general hated us because we were the only American team at the time in their Canadian leagues, in the Canadian Premiership, and they really resented us being in their leagues. And there was a lot of animosity. There was a lot of weird vitriol, and like there was the refs didn't like us, the players didn't like us, so there would be like fights, people were stomping on heads, throwing punches, doing all these sorts of things. The ref just sort of would let it get on with it because they didn't like us either. And so you really had to take your own safety in your hands. And so that's why I didn't accept people doing that, accepting people hitting me illegally or hitting me late or throwing punches. I just I took care of it. There was a guy, Deacon Jones, who's a Hall of Fame NFL player, and he said that he would never accept someone hitting him illegally or dirty. And so he said, when that happens, you have to serve justice. And if you don't know how to serve justice, you're going to get kicked around the league. And so, I had to figure out how to serve justice whenever that happened. But this little bastard got away with it because he broke my leg. And then, I can't just get up and go and kick his ass because I could barely walk. So I remember I was putting my leg down, and I could feel my foot slipping away from my leg. It really was just skin holding my foot on. And I was like, "Ooh, that's not good." And, we only had like 10 minutes left in the game. And our fullback, a buddy of mine, Ryan Bishop, I just hear him in the background. He's just like, "Chaffee, get in there." And I was thinking in my head, I was like, "Ooh, I should probably go off. This is bad." But, you're so filled with adrenaline when you have an actual injury like that, like a major injury, that you don't even feel pain. You just know something's really bad. And he was like, "Chaffee, get in there." So I was like, "Yep, guess I'm not going off." And so I sort of hobbled over to the side of the ruck and then just got down on my hands and then my left leg and curled my right leg up behind me. And that runner would come in. I just shoot myself into his knees and then, sort of get knocked back. And I knew that if my foot hit the ground, it was going to rip right off. And so I had to keep that up and elevate it. And then sort of 3-post bear crawl over to the side, hit another guy, bear crawl over, hit another guy. And I sort of did that. So I made a number of other tackles. And then I was sort of standing there. I would just scream for the ball, but wouldn't actually run for it. So I'd draw people in and then they'd pass it off. But unfortunately, I was pretty useless other than that. And after the game, I was just sort of hobbling off. But it was so difficult for me to get off the field. And I didn't think to ask somebody "Hey, I really can't walk. Can you help me?" So it took me 10 minutes just to get off the field. And they ended up putting me in an air cast, just sort of a, this brace splint that tied up. And that at least allowed me to walk. I mean, I didn't think there was any way that I could even shower because I was so unstable. And so I had that on, and so I could do that then. And then I ended up going out and being pretty depressed and thinking well, I don't drink during the rugby season, but I clearly broke my leg. So obviously the rugby season's over. And that was the last game anyway. And so it was just right, well, I'm going to get drunk. And I ended up drinking. And I remember, getting pain relief from the drinking. And I ended up actually walking around and drinking and going to bars. I had the air cast on. It was the only thing sort of keeping it together. And then I went to the hospital the next day, and it was where they took the cast off. It was literally black on everything that the cast wasn't pushing on and giving pressure on, literally black. And, but I walked in there. And so, the sort of the emergency department rules on how you assess, whether or not you need to give somebody an ankle x-ray on the odds of them being, having a fracture or something like that. I think it's the Toronto ankle rules or something. And, is if you're weight bearing and you're walking in there, you don't need an x-ray, right? And so I went in there, I was walking in there, and I sort of was talking to them, but I could handle the pain. And so they triaged me very low, right? I was very low on the standing. And so I was sitting there for hours and hours, and they looking in there, and the resident, I remember looking in there going like, "Ooh, that is BROKE." And the attending was like, "Well, no, hold on. You don't remember the ankle rules? You know, he walked in here, he's weight bearing. It's the day after. There's all these other sort of things." And I'm in my head, I'm just like, you just don't realize that I'm not a wuss, you know? And so they're like, "Oh, but he's here, so we'll do an X-ray, but really it's really unlikely, probably just a bad sprain." And it comes in, it's a horrible fracture, and in fact the foot. So here's your two bones, your fibula and your tibia. It's supposed to sort of sit here, cradled in there, really rested on your tibia, and then your fibula sort of on the side. It was out here. It was just sort of pushed out there on the X-ray. So I was referred to an orthopedic surgeon pretty much right away. He didn't see me that day. I ended up seeing him the next day, and he just said, "Look, your foot's out of socket, is dislocated, and so you're going to have a lot of soft tissue damage, and you have this break. I mean, the fracture is the fracture, but if we don't do surgery and relocate your ankle and repair that soft tissue, you're never going to walk again. You're never going to. Well, you're walking, but you'll never use that ankle again." And I was like, "Right. When do we do surgery?" And he's just like, "Oh, now. I mean, we just like 2 hours we get done." And so I was in surgery 2 hours later, and
wow,
they had to repair my my deltoid ligament actually. When I went to medical school years later, that was taught to us that you cannot actually break the deltoid ligament. It's so strong that it's actually stronger than the bone it's attached to. It actually avulses. It'll just rip off the bone before you damage the ligament, or before you rupture the ligament. Well, I did it, and so I destroyed my deltoid ligament. And even though in the textbook it says you can't do that, I did that, and so that had to be repaired. So they had to sort of repair all those ligaments and things like that, and put everything back together. So that was a pretty bad injury. And I wasn't walking. I couldn't walk for 5 months after that. And my leg ended up being skinny as my arm, and probably skinnier than my arm is now. And normally my legs would be like tree trunks, because I trained so much, and worked out so much, and lifted and sprinted so much. So it was that was bad, and it took a long time to recover from. That was the main injury. That was my main injury. Unfortunately, that was right before the 2003 World Cup. And so that put me out of contention to try out for that. That was my aspiration, was to play in that World Cup.
So during that time, though, you were fully carnivore for the most part, but apart from drinking on occasion. Is that the case?
Well, I never drank during the rugby season, so I always, maybe it was like once a year, if that. It'd be years in a row that I wouldn't drink. Now I never do anything. I very rarely drink. It would again be like once every 2 years or something like that, maybe, and then it would be not all that much. The thing is that you feel the effects of these things much more significantly when you have everything out of your system and everything works fantastic. And so you don't have the same desire, because you feel worse as a result. So I mean, I noticed that I don't feel my best for full 3 weeks, and I can't work out as hard. I can't push myself. I don't have the same energy. And so that's not that's not what I want. I don't want to have an entire month of my life feeling not my best and not feeling great. So something has to be worth me not feeling my best for a month for it to be worth it. Now, those things come up every now and then, like a good friend's wedding, or something like that, but very rarely. So it's I don't even know the last time I drank, but it would have been a couple of years ago at least.
Right. Speaking of working out, that's one of the next questions I had. See, I know that you're busy a lot, right? And you have said on other occasions that you don't really work out very frequently anyway. But what exactly is your workout schedule like?
Well, at the moment, I don't have a schedule, so I just sort of get in workouts when I can. But it has been a while. When I'm traveling, I try to use like the X3. So I actually probably work out more regularly then, just because like I have it with me, and I'm like, oh, it's stupid to bring this thing and not use it. Then really, I try to use it when I'm stuck for time as well. But you just sort of get so busy, you just don't do it. When I'm working out regularly, when I like to work out, like at least lift weights at least 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I like to do sprints on stairs or hills, because for some reason my knee swells up every time I just run on the flats. So, but if I do sprints on stairs, it's fine. So I'm trying to rehab my knees. I've got some advice from Ben, the knees over toes guy. Is a really nice guy and very helpful. And so I've been trying to do his exercises whenever I remember, and hopefully get my knee rehabbed, and maybe eventually I can start running again properly. But until then, I do sprints on the stairs, and for some reason that works, and it doesn't swell up my knee, and I can get a good sprint workout there. So eventually I'd like to be able to do normal, more frequent workouts, at least sprint like 3 days a week, and hopefully get back to rugby. That's the goal, but it's infrequent at the moment. So yeah, that's a good thing about this diet, is that you get in a lot better shape when you're working out, but you never get out of shape. So this is my baseline. I never get worse than this, but I only get better. So that part's good.
Yeah, I've noticed an uptick on my ability to hold muscle, and my power is definitely improving. The other day I was doing explosive push-ups. I haven't done those in years.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we see like people. Well, I was just gonna say, when we see other people, we have people like, that haven't been able to work out in a long time, being able to do a lot more, and even people that are elderly that haven't been able to work out in a long time, all of a sudden they're feeling great, and they're doing sprints. You have people in their 60s and 70s doing sprints, which is amazing, and so that's fantastic to see that people can recover so much ground that they can get back to working out like a teenager again.
Like a superhero, man.
Yeah, that's it.
So I got a question from a friend from my community. He asked, what are the best studies that show plants are pro-inflammatory and that many are carcinogenic?
So the best things are from the actual field of botany. You don't want to look at nutritional epidemiology because it's garbage. And so you look at the hard sciences, which is biology and botany, and like there are nearly 1 million different chemicals in plants that they use as defense. And so this is just an objective truth. I mean, there are things that bind nutrients, there are things that disrupt your hormones, there are things that stop you from absorbing certain things. There are things that are directly toxic and harmful that we know are directly toxic and harmful. So what you can do is you can look up those individual toxins. The WHO has a great webpage called, what is it, like natural toxins found in foods or something like that. Now they say foods, but literally every single thing is a plant, mushroom, or algae. There isn't a single thing on there that's toxic that's in meat. So that should tell you something, that there isn't anything identified in meat that is known to be toxic. There's all these epidemiological studies put out by special interest groups that have doctored the evidence to make it appear as if meat were bad, but there's nothing actually in meat that they can say, hey, here's this poison, here's cyanide. You can say that about 2,500 different plants, though, that they have cyanide. And so, this is just an objective reality. And there are a lot of studies showing that lectins, tannins, oxalates, phytates, saponins, hormonal disruptors, all these sorts of things are in plants. And there's plenty of studies showing that they cause harm, literally going back hundreds of years. I mean, this was a major part of biology and in philosophy was understanding this. It's understanding the sciences of how plants worked and how they could kill you. I mean, the ancient Greeks knew that hemlock would kill you, and they poisoned people with hemlock to kill them. That's how Socrates was killed, was with hemlock. So this is something that's always been known, really, is that plants are toxic, and that you have to understand how to use them and utilize them safely in order to be safe. So looking at the different toxins, going on that web, I have that in my Plants Are Trying to Kill You talk on my page, and then on the list in the bibliography on the Low Carb Down Under video version of that, the links for that WHO article, and you can just go through that. You can just see all the different categories, and that's not even all the categories, that I named. There's more categories on the WHO website, and there are more categories that aren't even on the WHO website. So you can go in there and you can look up and you can see exactly what it is. But this is hard science. These things exist, and there are a number of government websites as well, and I have links for those in many of my videos, especially the ones on plant toxins, where they talk about how there are all these different toxins that are found in food. You need to be careful and cook and treat and do special things to them in order to detoxify them, ferment them, put these things through different chemical processes, which you've done for thousands of years, to try and reduce the toxic level and increase the bioavailability of the nutrients. Something we've been doing for thousands of years. And so, I mean, that's just a tacit understanding or tacit admission that, like, there are poisons in here, because if there weren't poisons, you wouldn't need to detoxify them. And so you can look at those and then sort of look them up individually, look up all those different chemical categories individually. But, the WHO even says that some of these things can kill, they can cause serious harm, and they can be mutagenic or even carcinogenic. I mean, the WHO says that. And then you can look those up individually to find out which ones. But there's many articles. There's an article from Professor Bruce Ames in 1989, and he identified 42 different toxins in plants, 20 of which were shown to be carcinogenic in lab studies. So, and then you study cancer biology. I studied cancer biology, and we learned that, there were over 100 known carcinogens in many of the produce items that we eat, and there were dozens in every produce item. So the information's out there. You're not going to find it in an epidemiological nutritional study, mostly because they're crap. That's not real science. That's hypothesis generating, but it's not actual science. And most of it is completely corrupted by the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the big food industries that are they're the ones pumping out, the vast majority of this nutritional paperwork, and they're peer reviewing it themselves, because the Seventh-day Adventist Church has multiple medical centers around the world, and they have a major medical university called Loma Linda in Loma Linda, California, and they do all their own peer reviewing. So any plant-based nutritional propaganda that comes in is like, oh yeah, stamp of approval. So of course it gets approved, and they sort of, weed out things that they don't want and don't peer review them and don't approve them for publication. And they obviously approve anything that meets with their ideology, which is really corrupt.
That right there leads into my next question. So I saw your video presentation on the Seventh-day Adventists and Dr. Kellogg. You said they push for plant foods to reduce sexual desire. I wanted to know, what line of research were you on when you found that thread? And was it all a matter of public record, or did you have to dig real hard to find that?
No, that's public record. I mean, that's in their own documentation and writings and publications. They say that. Ellen G. White was their prophetess and one of their founding members, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, she was there from the beginning. She was influenced by Sylvester Graham, who made graham crackers for the same reason, because he theorized that you had to eat bland, plant-based foods in order to suppress sexual urges. This was a notion that I saw. The earliest record I saw of this was in the 1820s. It probably came before that, from a doctor who said that this is how you suppress sexual urges, is eating a plant-based diet. And then, decades later, Sylvester Graham made graham crackers, influenced Ellen G. White. Then she heard this, learned about it, and then said she had a vision from God that said meat was evil and toxic, and it caused lustful feelings, and lust was a sin, and therefore you should stop eating meat. That's in their doctrine. So this isn't a secret. I mean, this is an open admonition. This is their religious tenet that meat is toxic. It's a horrible thing that you shouldn't eat. You shouldn't bring in your body. And that was one of the main reasons, was because it begot lustful feelings. And you need to eat a bland plant-based diet in order to stamp that down. This was open. They were openly talking about this. Kellogg, Ellen G. White wrote dozens of books. Kellogg wrote dozens of books, and spoke about all this stuff. So this is all just public record. It's just no one really knows it anymore.
So would you think that it would really concern the discerning public that their food is being tampered with intentionally for religious purposes?
Well, I'm sure it would bother people that the guidelines and everything like that were influenced in this way. I mean, some people may not care, but I think most people are really trying hard to do the right thing for themselves, for their health, for their children, for their parents, for their loved ones. And so they're just taking the advice of the authorities, and finding out that the authorities are full of crap isn't a nice realization, or realizing that they're corrupt and they've been bribed, or they've been misguided from ideological wants that stem from this decision in the 1800s that everyone needed to stop eating meat for their own good. And that's why Kellogg started making Kellogg cereals, processing plants, trying to make these cereals. He was very, very influential. I mean, he was like a doctor to the stars, and he had some of the most famous people of the day, captains of industry, major politicians, Henry Ford, I think Carnegie. Will Durant was his patient for a while, which makes sense because so if people don't know, Will Durant is one of the more famous historians ever and classicists ever. He wrote a book called I, Claudius. It was turned into a BBC drama. Captain Picard played, was it Germanicus? Anyway, he was in there, and he was a bastard. And so it's very famous. He's very, very, very famous. He wrote The History of Civilization. The history of civilization. So it's this massive 11-volume work, these big tomes, and there's 11 of them. And so it goes all the way back to the beginning of civilization, all the way up to the modern era. So this guy was a major, major figure, and he was heavily influenced by Kellogg. And I remember reading an excerpt from Will Durant, and he said that, well, people are on this side, they think this, and these other people say this. But, Dr. Kellogg agrees with the first people, and you can never go wrong listening to Dr. Kellogg. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I had no idea. And so this guy was really influential, really, really influential. And so he made a lot of waves. And so he influenced, I think something like 36 cereal companies all grew up out of his area. A lot, Post cereals. That Mr. Post was one of his patients and clients. And he ended up founding his own cereal companies after he was influenced by Kellogg. But Kellogg would make these processed cereals and nut-based fake meats. That was the origin of fake meats was with Kellogg, and he would make these nut-based ones to try to replace meat, so that people didn't need to eat meat. And that's what he pushed on his patients. That's what he espoused for. This is the healthiest thing. This is what you need to do. And you need a clean colon, and you needed to have multiple enemas a day. He invented a machine that would give high-powered enemas, like 60 liters of water in and out of your colon in under a minute. This was like intense. And he gave himself 2 of those a day for some reason. I don't know if it's because it was even though he was married for something like 60 years, he never once slept with his wife, according to record. He never, yeah. So there's some sort of crazy sexual repression there, but
possibly.
Yeah, possibly, just possibly. They adopted all their kids.
Maybe a little bit.
For example, and he, that was it. He was just so brainwashed by Ellen G. White and the temperance movement, when they were just like, sex is evil, masturbation is evil, and you just can't do it. So he just would never have sex or do anything like that. And he was just, I think he was just a bit deranged, from this brainwashing. But he did a lot of things. I think that he did a lot of harm to people, and this was just, he is the person that influenced America to get circumcisions. And so that was him. That's why we did it. But it wasn't in order to help people or be more hygienic. That's what he claimed, that this is more hygienic and it reduces cancer rates. That's true if you never wash yourself. If you never wash your genitals, then it can increase your risk of getting penile cancer. From my previous studies, I remember it being by a factor of 3. So you're 3 times more likely to get penile cancer if you don't wash under your foreskin. But if you do wash under your foreskin, there's no difference. So it purely comes down to, do you wash yourself or not, you sick bastard? If you do, then it's fine. There's no difference. But also, penile cancer is vanishingly rare, especially before the era of HPV. So 3 times a small number is still a small number, and then if you just wash yourself, there's no difference. So that was a complete lie. That was a complete myth. And he did it in order to make it difficult for people to masturbate and to fornicate. That was his view on it, and to deter people from that. And then people figured out lube, and then that was sort of the end of that story. And so everyone was going back to having sex and masturbating, but the practice of circumcision stuck around because they didn't know that this was just about masturbation and fornication. They thought that this is actually healthy for my kid. And so they did that, and they had no idea. But that's why he did that, and that's why he pushed that.
Wow. Okay, wait. Talk about kids and health. That's another roll in. So let's see about that one, shall we? Okay. So this was asked earlier by B. She wants to know what your opinion on brain development in children with a primarily carnivore diet is like, and why schools push high carb foods. Do people really not know, or is it intentional to dummy down the kids?
The teachers and the schools, at that level, they have no idea. So they just think this is what you're supposed to do. This is what the guidelines are. So yeah, this is great. And of course they wouldn't do that. Whoever they are, would never promote a diet that's bad for kids, because who would do that? Well, assholes and evil people will. And they do. The food companies know damn well that this stuff is really bad. It causes disease, causes metabolic dysfunction, causes harm. And they don't care. They're happy with that. Callie Means has been a whistleblower for the food industries, and I believe he's sort of shown what the pharmaceutical companies are up to as well. But he was saying that that all the food companies know that their processed foods cause harm, they cause metabolic distress, they cause dysfunction, and they cause disease, and they know that, and I know they know that because I've been in the board meetings with them while they talked about it. So they know, at least. And the schools, once it gets down to that level, they're just worker bees at that point. They're just sort of doing what they're told, and they're just expecting that everybody above them is a benevolent angel and just wants the best for everybody. Maybe they just don't care to think about it or find out. As to brain development on carnivore, yeah, I think that's going to be number one, the best thing for kids and brain development. Think of it this way. Prior to agriculture, the adult male brain capacity was 11% larger than it was 10,000 years ago, directly after agriculture, and that's continued to today. So there's an 11% drop immediately that has persisted. In women, it's more pronounced. It's 17%. So the brain size dropped 17%, bam, 10,000 years ago, and that's persisted. So that's developmental. That can't really be anything else. You've affected the development of that child, and now that child could not develop to their genetic potential. So that's wrong. And just because, well, I'm smart and I grew up on a bit, good for you. You're not as smart as you would have been. You're not as tall as you would have been. Your brain isn't as developed as it would have been. It's not as large as it would have been. You are not the person you could have been. Maybe you're a very nice person. but you are not the person you would have been. I'm not the person I would have been, that I could have been, that I should have been. None of us are, unless we were actually raised by a wonderful set of parents that actually did carnivore before we were born, during, and after pregnancy. And that's happening now. There are more and more people doing that, and their kids are thriving, and their brains are much larger. They're off the percentile chart. And so why is that? Well, you're not eating. Well, first of all, you're just eating things that you're designed to eat, and your body's going to develop the way it's designed to develop. Pure and simple. You can stop right there. But if you want to know a bit more detail, kids are always in ketosis in infancy and in the womb. They're in ketosis. And when breastfeeding, they're in ketosis. And early on, they're in ketosis. Why is that? Because ketones cross the blood-brain. First of all, ketones are your brain's primary energy source for most of the cells in your brain. Some still run on glucose, most run on ketones. And that's very important for the fuel and for the mitochondrial health of your brain and development of your brain. Secondly, ketones cross the blood-brain barrier and reconstitute into fatty acids, which are used as the building blocks for the physical structures of your brain. Your brain is made out of fat and cholesterol. This is something you have to have in abundance, or you will not grow your brain properly. And so this gives your brain the building blocks. And this is why kids need to be in ketosis, because they need ketones going into their brain so they can build fat. And so that's a major, major portion. So you keep stuffing in carbs and sugar, you are kicking them out of ketosis, you are suppressing their ketone levels, and you are suppressing their brain development. You're also blocking out necessary nutrients. Like, you need meat, but you need that to be your sole diet, because if you eat other things, that's replacing the nutrients in the meat. So you're not getting as much meat, you're not eating as much meat, you're not getting as many nutrients, and you're getting other things that can be anti-nutrients. They can block tannins, can bind up proteins and other sorts of nutrients, and oxalates and phytates and so many other things will block and disrupt your body's ability to absorb and utilize different nutrients. You have protease inhibitors like in wheat and soy and many other things that stop you from absorbing amino acids. You're doing low fat diets, or your brain is made out of fat, your body is made out of fat and cholesterol. You need this stuff. And so you're really limiting yourself, and you're poisoning yourself. You're giving yourself direct toxins, neurotoxins. There are a lot of neurotoxins that plants develop to damage the brain, caffeine being one of them. That's a neurotoxin and an insecticide that was developed to fry the brains and nervous system of insects trying to eat those plants. So, there are so many things that we put in our body that really should never be there. And again, it just comes back to that sentinel point. If you eat what you're designed to eat, your body's going to work the way it's designed to work. And if you don't, it won't. So you need to find out what our bodies are designed for, what our species is designed for. And you look back at biology, look back at our historical past. The immutable law of biology is that of adaptation. What you have been adapting to the longest is what you're designed for. So we've been eating meat. We've been apex predators for over 2 million years. The definition of an apex predator is a carnivore. Apex predators eat other animals. That is a definition in terms. And we were eating meat a long time before that. We were apex predators for at least 2 million years. So we have been evolving and adapting to meat for millions of years. So we are designed for it. We are optimized for it. We've only started eating plants regularly very recently, and it caused a huge disruption in our health and development immediately, 10,000 years ago, which has persisted. And you look at native populations that go from their hunter-gatherer, mostly hunter past, like the Plains Indians in America, who in the 1800s were eating a bunch of bison, and they were the tallest population on Earth. That's a study that came out in 2001 showing that. And now that's very different. They're not as tall. They're suffering from serious chronic disease, obesity, diabetes, cancer, and all these sorts of things, which did not exist in their population to any great extent prior to the adoption of a Western diet. And they were called Western diseases back then. They're still called Western diseases when you're talking about the context of Native Americans. I was just reading a book on this, talking about the health and changes. Like, yeah, when they started westernizing, started getting developed sort of structure, they start getting Western diseases and diseases of civilization and all these sorts of things. It was just like, this has been written about for literally like recently, going back centuries, and yet we're not putting it together that this comes about from eating this garbage food and not eating what we're supposed to eat and designed to eat, which is fatty meat. That's it.
Wow. Who, in your opinion, would benefit from reducing the population and the intelligence of the general population?
Oh, who would benefit from that? Oh gosh, I don't know. Any sort of psychopath. But I mean, there are a lot of people. You're never going to run shy of narcissists and megalomaniacs in the human race. And so there's always going to be someone that thinks they can do everything better, they can do everything right, or that they deserve everything and they should be running everything and they want to control people. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so when you start gaining power and getting more and more power, you want more. And so, that tends to be the way, especially, and, a good way to do that is through government. And as Thomas Jefferson said, the nature of the world is for government to grow and for liberty to yield. And so government is going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow because these are the aspirations and machinations of different sorts of power hungry maniacs. And people's liberty is going to go back and go back and go back and go back. And then we have our backs against the wall at this point. And now, because we have our backs against the wall, now people are saying, well, this hasn't worked. The American experiment has failed. And so now we need to go to, now we need to try something new and wonderful like global communism. And that's the WF sort of slogan. It's like, it's 2030, you own nothing and you love it. I mean, how much more like brainwashing propaganda can you get? Hey, you don't own anything and it's great. You love it. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? So if I don't own anything, who does? Oh, no one owns anything. Everything's no. Someone owns things. That's how the world works. So if I don't own anything, if you don't own anything, if everyone doesn't own anything, that means that very select few people own things. And so what does that mean? That means everyone's a slave. So you work, but the product of your labor is not your own. That goes to someone else. You are given a place to live. You are given food. You are given just enough to keep you happy and to keep working like a busy little worker bee. But you're never going to rise up above that. You're always going to be where you are unless you have some sort of political sort of connections. But that's really it. They're going to keep things two class. So they want to go back to aristocracy. They want to go back to oligarchy. They want to go back to this gentry class where like they're in charge, no one else is, and everyone else is living in serfdom. Well, we've done that for thousands of years, and it sucked, frankly. And we don't want to do that anymore. We've had a few bright spots of freedom and liberty for the common people, and that tends to get some sort of megalomaniac that wants to take control and take over, and they end up doing it. And so you have the democracies in ancient Greece lasted about 150 years generally. Democracies generally ended up in tyrannies and autocracies. Because once people figured out they could just vote themselves more money, they just, they never work again, and they just sort of vote. So that's why Rome started a republic, a representative republic, and that helped disseminate some of the power around, and it wasn't like a direct democracy. And that helped and that lasted hundreds of years, lasted longer than America has, and then, Caesar came in and said, yeah, we're going back to empires. And then people said, no, we're not going to do that. So they killed Caesar and then kept the empire. So I was like, well, you should have kept Caesar then, because he was actually doing a good job. And you didn't like crash yourself into civil war. But then Rome lasted, another several centuries. And, and then you had America that popped up, and that sort of influenced other spheres, the Magna Carta and all these sorts of things. Little spots here and there that sort of just gave people back their freedom and control, and then they just wash up again, So we're sort of looking at that right now. We're watching the door of freedom close on the end of that, and we look back and it's like, oh, 1,000 years from now, it's like, oh yeah, there was this really good spot, worked really, really well, and then closed shut, and then it took however many hundreds of years for people to crawl their way out of slavery. That's what we're looking at right now. So there are a lot of people. There's going to be no shortage of people that are willing to enslave their fellow man and profit from their misery and suffering. I mean, you have the food companies doing it now. They know that this stuff causes disease, and they do it anyway to keep them addicted and keep them profitable. And then they also invest in the pharmaceutical companies, because they then sell them the diabetes medications and all the different sorts of meds to treat the different illnesses that they have. To me, that's malice aforethought. That this is causing harm. This is causing disease. This is killing people. And then you sell them the drugs that can help mitigate that. I mean, that shows what you're doing. It causes harm, and you're doing it on purpose so that you can profit off that. I mean, that's something that you should go to prison for. That's something you should probably be executed
for. Sounds like a legal case.
Well, it should be.
It does.
I mean, think about the cigarette companies. I mean, they spent decades denying that cigarettes caused harm or were addictive, and they were going to court, and they're saying, well, we have these studies and those studies, and then they say, oh, but our studies say this. Our studies show the exact opposite. So I mean, what can we do? Well, then they got those leaked boardroom meetings, the tobacco memos showing that they damn well knew that this stuff caused disease, it caused harm, and of course it was addictive. And in fact, they were trying to target kids to get them addicted early, like any drug dealer, like any cartel. They want to addict kids early so that they can have an addict for life. Really disgusting human beings. And so they knew they got done for perjury and all this sort of stuff. But you know what they didn't get done for? And they got fined for $400 billion, I think the settlement was. And then the government just took that and wasted it. And they had some other payouts and things like that. But what they didn't do is they didn't arrest these people and say, hey, you are intentionally poisoning people, and you knew it was causing cancer, you knew it was causing emphysema, you knew it was causing death, and yet you did it knowing that it was doing that. Like, they caused the deaths of tens of millions of people and destroyed the health of probably billions. So why the hell don't they go to jail? Why don't they face a firing squad? Yeah. I mean, they should. I mean, it's I think honestly we live in a darker time now that we've gotten rid of public executions for shit like this. I mean, I really do. It used to be that people that committed treason and sold out the safety of hundreds of millions of Americans died. And then you had people selling us out, selling secrets, leaking the nuclear weapon technology to the Soviets because they felt that the Soviets should win and they're better and that communism is so good. You need to die. You potentially cause the death of millions and millions of Americans if those nukes ever hit our soil. Why would you ever bat an eye about executing someone like this? Well, if you could execute someone like that, why aren't you executing someone who is knowingly causing the death and harm to tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people around the world? Someone who goes around and poisons a well just for the sake of poisoning people, they die. They were lynched, they were hung. Like, how is this any different? This is causing harm, and unlike the well poisoner, it's just this random act of evil. I mean, you're selling them the poisoned well water, knowing that it's going to kill them. That's just sick. Yeah, these are sick people. Yeah, and so the food companies are doing this now. The pharmaceuticals companies are not much better. I mean, they're likely in bed with the food companies, and whether they know what's happening, I don't know. But if they do know, then I think that would amount to a criminal act. But what they do say and have said is that it's not really a good business model to cure diseases. The better business model is to find something that they can paper over and band-aid different symptoms that so they can have them again addict them for life. So you get people on blood pressure medication since they're 30 and you got them for the rest of their life. Or you get people on different medications. They get diabetes when they're 10. Awesome, they're on these medications for the rest of their life. So I think it was Kelly Means. It might have been someone else who said that they heard a pharmaceutical executive saying once, asked a question saying, do you know what my favorite medication that our company makes is? And like, oh, well, what's that? You're curing cancer in kids, something noble. No, my favorite medication that our company makes are any medication that causes side effects that we have medications that treat. Okay. These are sick people. They're saying they want you to suffer so that they can sell you more drugs. That's disgusting to me. And these people are disgusting. They should be criminally prosecuted if they can prove that this was, if this was done knowingly. It's never going to happen. If you're not going to do it to the tobacco companies, who the hell are you going to do it to?
I'm with you. Malice
but
equals murder.
They deserve. But yeah.
I totally agree with you. Malice equals murder. So I figure I'll give way to your started comments over here so that maybe you can get to answering some of the questions the people who've done super chats and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll get to these. So we have about 8 super chats here, everyone, and I'll go through those and we'll see. So we have about 10 minutes, so we should be able to get through these and see how we go after that. So Vicky Landau, thank you very much for the super chat. 19-year-old woman, carnivore, TC, total cholesterol 262, triglycerides 54, HDL 68, VLDL 8, LDL calc 186. Thank you. So I'm assuming, what do I think about that? I think that's great. I think the only useful metric that we can get from cholesterol is really a metabolic standard. So if your HDL is high and triglycerides are low, then that shows you have, your at least that part of your metabolism is healthy. It's good. It's a mark in your favor for metabolic health. Metabolic syndrome, there are a number of different qualifying problems that you can have. One of those is low HDL and high triglycerides. So you have the opposite. So you would be out of that. That wouldn't qualify you for a mark against you for metabolic syndrome. So that's great. So that's a sign of metabolic health. Again, the sugar companies used cholesterol as a scapegoat. This goes back. All these different industries are all trying to paint the blame somewhere else and defend their product. And the sugar companies knew that this was a harm too, just like the tobacco companies. And they made these fake studies and paid off these fake trustworthy professors, paid them off to put out garbage data, and then paid off people in positions of power in the government to again push out bullshit. So they should all be in prison as well, because we have the sugar memos now. We know that they knew that sugar was likely causing harm, and it was strongly correlated with heart disease, and that fat and cholesterol were not. But that's what they pushed out. So they harmed billions of people around the world, and we're still seeing the ramifications of that. And so cholesterol was never the issue. So why are we still worrying about cholesterol? I don't. The only thing I care about there is seeing that your HDL is high and your triglycerides are low, and that means you have good metabolic health. So good job. But there are better markers of metabolic health, like fasting insulin, HbA1c, fasting glucose, and leptin. Those sorts of things are much better markers, much better markers. And especially the fasting insulin, that's a much better marker. And so you correct those things. You're also the things that you would do to correct those other metabolic issues will also correct your HDL and triglycerides anyway. So very well done. This is a super chat from Peter Whedon. Thank you very much for that. I didn't see a question with that, but maybe there's one over here. Let me see.
The moderators aren't on tonight, so I
There we
don't
go.
know.
Oh, I don't know. There we go. Question. 6-year-old, keto from June 2019, carnivore from January 2023. Great. Triglycerides have increased from 21 to now. Each number is approximately per annum 110, 120, 140. Recent blood September 23. Any clues? Stress can also be a cause. People that get have very high stress, very demanding work and things like that. I have seen them get increases in their triglycerides. You also have to, what kind of carnivore are you doing? Are you doing artificial sweeteners? Are you using other sorts of things as well? That's all important. And but in general, triglycerides will go down. Generally, triglycerides go up with sugar, alcohol, and carbohydrates. But I have seen people do very clean carnivore and have that go up because they were stressed to hell. They were having horrible times at work, very hard times. And once that cleared up, the blood's cleared up as well. So you can definitely get metabolic distress from high cortisol levels as well. And you're stressed out and freaking out all the time. Your cortisol levels are going to go up. So that could be it. Take a look at that. If you are eating anything else on earth apart from fatty meat and water, cut them out. You can also try getting rid of any pork, chicken, or especially farmed fish, anything that's intensively factory farmed. The monogastrics, they only have one stomach. They will tend to have much higher levels of omega-6 and linoleic acids, which can cause metabolic distress. So that's a potential risk as well. So stick to beef and lamb, just drink water and try to reduce stress in your life. And I would bet that goes down. Andy Z, thank you for the super chat. My partner has chronic pancreatitis. The doctor said she is not allowed. Partner has chronic pancreatitis. The doctor says she is not allowed or supposed to eat any fat-containing foods. Okay. Will this diet be safe for someone who doesn't have a working pancreas? Yeah. It's the optimal diet for everyone in every condition because this is our optimal diet as a species. So pancreatitis is an issue because the pancreas obviously is inflamed. That's the itis part of that. Chronic meaning it's just ongoing. When you have inflamed pancreas and it's sort of being damaged, it's hard on the pancreas when it's producing the enzymes that it needs to produce. So it produces lipase, it produces protease, it also produces amylase and that is, there are all these enzymes that break down food we eat. So, just foregoing fat and then not producing lipase isn't the only thing. You'll have the protease and the amylase, that are going to break down these other sorts of things. So you're still going to have your pancreas working. And so one thing, when you have acute pancreatitis, you basically just don't eat anything at all. You go in the hospital and they fast you and just put you on liquids. Just IV nutrition. There are things like Creon that are sort of these pancreatic enzymes that sort of help you break down your food. Like if someone has complete pancreatic insufficiency, I believe it's Creon, if I'm not misremembering that, that they can get help with. But no, I mean, your pancreas is going to be working no matter what you eat. So you might as well eat the thing that's actually good for you and is going to reduce inflammation, like fat. And the carbs are going to increase inflammation, and even just because that causes metabolic distress, it raises insulin, that causes inflammation. The different plants cause inflammation, and then suppressing ketones and not having enough ketones and fat are going to be a problem because higher ketone levels actually directly suppress inflammation. And so I would expect she would actually get better. If anything, if she changed her diet in any way, I would say fast. She just stop eating everything, let her pancreas rest. But if she's okay to eat, then she should still eat what she should eat. She should still eat the healthiest thing that's available to her, which is fatty meat, because that's the healthiest thing that anybody can eat. And I would expect it to help. I would not expect it to hurt her any more than any food would. And so, she needs some digestive enzymes or something like that, like the creon, then that's something that she might need to look at. But no, I would fully disagree with that. I think that's her doctor's own personal bias, and they just oh, fat's bad, fat's bad. Oh my God, you have to stop eating fat. And it was just like, dude, think about it for 2 seconds. Protein, carbohydrates, both need to be broken down by enzymes from the pancreas. So why is lipase such a bad thing? I mean, maybe there's a reason, but I don't know it, and I wouldn't expect it to be the case. Hope that helps. Super sticker from Tim. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, Tim. And Peter Whedon, question, further info, strict on carnivore. I think that was his question.
Strict carnivore.
Strict carnivore, yeah. But I think this was added in. Oh, yeah, further info on that question was he was strict carnivore. Yeah, so strict carnivore, you have to look at stress and get out other things in your environment, and cut out the beef, pork. No, sorry, not the beef. The pork, chicken, and farmed fish, especially farmed fish, is terrible. And just cut out the dairy for good measure. You just play it as safe as possible, and just go red meat and water, and reduce stress. And I would expect that to improve.
Might he also look into environmental toxins?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just try to clean up your whole exposure profile. Food's obviously the most important thing, because we shovel that into our face every single day, but you do get exposures in other ways as well. So yeah, I don't know of any other environmental exposures that are going to raise triglycerides, but I have seen stress do it. And theoretically, the linoleic acid could do it as well. So yeah, but yeah, just cleaning up everything, and then you just cover your bases, because you never know, and either way, it's going to help you in other ways. You cut out all these different exposures. Even if it doesn't improve your triglycerides, it'll improve other things. And so, that's never a bad thing. Andy Z, thank you again for the super chat. I'm gassing out low energy on high intensity workouts when zero carb. Do I need to add more salt to water when working out for extra electrolytes? Possibly. Some people do. But just experiment with yourself. You can just try that. I don't even use salt at all now. And I really don't know the last time I used salt, but it's been months and months and months. So only salt I get that isn't just in the meat itself is like at a restaurant or something like that, when if they cook it and they add salt to it in the cooking, but I never add salt. So I just like the taste now, and then they add a bit of salt. It sort of tastes too salty, and I don't really like it. So salt to taste, that's always been my advice. If your body's telling you need more salt, then go for it. If you want to try having some salt and more water, go for it. There are other things that can happen though. I don't know how long you've been doing carnivore, but once you've been zero carb and actually zero carb for a few weeks, you generally feel a lot better and you have better energy, but definitely in a few months, because this has further knock-on effects that you then become much more attuned to ketosis and running on ketones. But I mean, you make carbs all the time anyway, so you should have those available. Pre-workout drinks, post-workout drinks, those are all poison. You need to get rid of them. Those will screw up your workouts, because of the artificial sweeteners, or even if they have sugar. But if they don't have sugar and they have artificial sweeteners, those are not good. Those I've seen that in patients that have CGMs, constant glucose monitors, and it makes their blood sugar sort of go all over the place. And I've seen it myself. I've tried taking branched chain amino acids, which I used to love. I thought that was just a game changer in my workouts when I was just eating a regular diet. And I would take BCAAs before workout. I'd have great workouts. I'd have like a rugby tournament. I'd just be gassed at the end of the day. I'd take BCAAs and go into the finals feeling like just fresh and ready to go and just kill it. Now, or when I went carnivore, I was like, oh, are these still going to help? I would take it, really cut down on my workout. I didn't feel nearly as good on the workout. So I'm like, oh, okay, probably the sweeteners and the crap that they put in it, because the BCAAs are great, but the sweeteners are not. So I would definitely get rid of those. Also, you need to remember that if you eat during the day, you are going to get lethargic and you're going to have a terrible workout. So try to train fasted. Always train, always play on an empty stomach, always train hungry, because you're sort of telling yourself physiologically that like you need to go and get a kill. That's what your body expending energy is to fight, mate, and kill so you can eat. So your body's going to give you that energy. If you have just eaten a whole big meal, your body's going to turn into a rest and digest metabolism. You're going to go into a lethargic state. You're going to pump in you're going to dedicate a lot of your blood down to your intestines to digest this food and absorb it. And that's blood that's not available for your brain and your body and your muscles. And so you're going to be more lethargic. And so I would do that as well. I would just not eat before you work out, even if you're not working out until the end of the day. If you need to eat something, I'd eat a very small amount, and then stay sort of just to take the edge off, but still be hungry, and see how that goes. And if that doesn't help, and you find that putting some salt in your water helps, great, so be it. That probably isn't this thing that you'll need to do for the rest of your life. But some people find that they need to, especially early on when they're getting used to their body running slightly differently with, different metabolism. So that's what I would try. Let's see here. Just a couple more. Peter Whedon. Question. 60 years old, 6 heart attacks from 2008, cabbage in 2012. That's a bypass surgery. CT angio in Perth in August. Great result. Patent grafts, no progression. Believe last 2 events in 21 and 22 from extremely high stress. Dr. Bryce and Prof. Watts want meds. Me, no. Opinion. Well, I think at the end of the day, this is ultimately up to you. The patient always should have the final say, and I'm sure Dr. Bryce and Professor Watts would agree with that, even if they don't agree that that it's a good idea to be off of them. It is important that people have autonomy and in their medical decisions. And so if that's something that you're concerned about or you don't think you need, then you are fully within your rights to say, hey, I'd rather go another approach. And doctors are here to give advice and to help and to counsel, but it's to counsel. It's not to direct. It's not to command. If you're passed out and you've had a heart attack, unless you have a directive, doctors are going to make the best medical decision to save your life and to help you that they can. Or if they think, look, this is not salvageable, they're going to be a lot of trouble. You talk to the family, say, okay, look, we probably would recommend they don't do anything here. You're going to make a medical decision in an emergency, but other than that, you have control of this. You even have control when you're passed out. You have a thing saying, do everything you can to save me. Great. Or, don't go past this point. Fine. That's good too. So when you're conscious, you definitely have a choice. So, you had heart attacks, 6 heart attacks in 4 years, which is impressive. And you mentioned, sort of allude to 2 events in 2021 and 22. I don't know if those were full-on heart attacks, but there's some sort of events and high stress. But you're saying that now you have very patent grafts and no progression. So if you have no progression and great results and everything's good and everything's stable, I mean, it's reasonable to keep doing what you're doing. And, if everything's stable, like if things start getting worse, okay, well then maybe you need to rethink what you're doing. I'm sure what the good doctors are concerned about is trying to stop something before it progresses. But if it's been a number of years and you've had no progression, well, that's pretty good. Then whatever you're doing seems to be working. And even in the face of high stress, that can be difficult, on your heart. High stress levels can absolutely damage your heart and damage the vasculature of your heart as well. And almost certainly leads to atherosclerosis. So that's something that's very important to get under control, is your stress levels. I don't know which medications they're suggesting, but there are a lot of different opinions on these sorts of things. For instance, Dr. Asim Malhotra, who's an interventional cardiologist in England, he wrote a book called A Statin-Free Life, and he goes through the data for going on statins. And so whenever a patient talks to him about statins, he goes through the literature with them and gives them the choice. Is this something you'd like to be on? I'll support your decision either way. And so you can just take a look at those things, arm yourself with that information so that you can make the best decision that you can for your body. I absolutely firmly believe there are medications that are very helpful to people. And I believe that others aren't so helpful and are really just there to perpetuate the drug companies and not people's health. So you need to sort of take a look at those and see which ones you think are there to help you or would help you, and which ones you wouldn't really want to. I would look at the interview I did with Dr. Asim Malhotra, ASEEM, on my YouTube channel. And then the solo video that I did by myself called The Truth About Cholesterol and Heart Disease. And it just goes through the history, goes through the studies about how cholesterol was really used as a scapegoat. So if cholesterol wasn't the problem, cholesterol lowering medications aren't the solution, if that's true. So take a look at the studies, take a look at the data, and see what you think. And then you'll be able to make your own decision on that. But
that was a good video. I saw that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I think that's important stuff to know about. Yeah. And Mr. Whedon, again, thank you very much for the super chat. So more info about the questions. CT angiogram, October 2023. Try no really throwing me. Don't know exactly what that means. I'll try and figure that out. Carnivore has really helped reduce severe pain from diagnosed peripheral neuropathy in toes and feet. Also help reverse trigger finger. Awesome. So that's something I do have a strong opinion on. Keep going carnivore. I really do think that is going to help your health issues, probably more than anything else, and certainly more than pretty much any medication that's out there. Obviously, we have nothing to test that against, but I see this doing amazing things that medications can't do, such as put diabetes into remission, put Crohn's disease into remission, put rheumatoid arthritis into remission, put multiple sclerosis into remission. Don't really see that with medications too often, especially if you stop taking the medications. So it's something that I think will continue to improve your health, again, because this is just how we're designed. And so you eat what you're designed to eat, your body's going to work the way it's designed to work, and it's going to have a certain capacity to undo a lot of the damage that's been caused to it. So CT angiogram, I'm not really understanding what try no really throwing me means. I'm not too sure. Maybe if you can put something in there, maybe another comment, let me know sort of what that means. I can try to see. You don't have to put a super chat, just put that in the normal chat and see if we can find that. And yeah, maybe that if you can find that. And we'll try to sort of answer that. But I'm not exactly sure what that means. But CT angiogram, that would give pretty good information. Saying before that everything sort of looked clear and no progression. If that was from the CT angiogram, that's fantastic. We'll see. Super chat from Anthony. Thank you very much. Hi, Doc. I'm pre-diabetic, have gout and HS. Don't know what I'll have to think about what HS means in that context. HS. So some acronyms, are pretty obvious, guys, but most of the time just spell it out, just because Sometimes it's not all that accurate or not all that obvious. And I've also been working for 14 hours, so my brain's fried. So that's a bit of an issue too. Would it be more beneficial for me to eat when hungry or to fast intermittently like OMAD? No, I think you eat when you're hungry. And I think that you eat until meat stops tasting good. And if you do that and it's fatty enough and you get enough food, most often people will gravitate towards eating once a day. And that's enough for them. And if that's enough for you, that's great. And if not, then eat more than once. So I think you just eat as much as you can until it stops tasting good. Most often that will just be about once a day. But if you're working out a lot, you're pushing yourself, your body's going to need more, and it's going to need more to build muscle and to repair itself after these big workouts. So just do what your body needs you to do. I don't worry too much about forcing yourself to starve or anything like that. So just eat what your body's asking you to eat. Most often, people find that tends to be once a day if they're eating enough. Okay, so let's look for Mr. Whedon's.
So Walking to Wellness with Carrie said, I think he's saying his triglyceride numbers. That's a possibility.
His triglyceride numbers are really throwing him. But did he tell us the triglyceride numbers?
I don't recall. We can look at
even that one. Oh, I think he was the first guy we talked about. Oh, yeah. Okay. So he was the first guy we were talking about that had the super chat that didn't actually go through. So, yeah. So his triglyceride numbers were just a bit up, but they're not all that high. They're not all that high. I mean, they did come up, but they're not all that high. So I would, and that makes sense. We were talking about like the stress causing raised triglycerides. And you're saying he had, severe stress, extremely high stress in 2001 and 2002. So that sort of fits with that. That's really, one of the main times I've seen that happen, and people are on like strict carnivore and their triglycerides sort of start creeping up. And that's from metabolic dysfunction from extreme stress. So you need to get your stress under control. That should get your triglycerides under control as well.
So he did reply. It's on the chat now. The question refers back to the prior question. Triglyceride numbers increase over the last 3 to 4 years. All good. Yep. Your earlier explanation cleared all that up for me. Stress is a big concern for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Good. I'm glad we were able to cover that. Okay. So we got a few other super chats here, guys. Let's probably need to stop it after that, though, guys.
No more super chats because Doctor is hungry.
Yeah, I need to head out, but I don't know how to stop that actually. I'll have to figure that out to turn off super chats. But we'll go through these. We'll go through these quickly because I don't want to leave people hanging.
Okay, double time.
Yeah, but just, please don't add any more, guys. I do need to wrap up. We'll start with this one because it's a large one. Lisa Wilson, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very generous of you. She says, this interview, the best info ever. I've been sick for 40 plus years, went to many doctors and allergists with no result. I found carnivore in May and now know what was killing me. I thought I was going to die young, no longer believe that. Thanks for all you do. Wow, that is so great. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you and thank you so much for the super chat. That was really lovely of you and very generous. So thank you. And excuse me. And that's being sick for 40 years and not knowing what's going on and going to doctors and them saying, gosh, I don't know. But you know in yourself that there's something wrong and we just don't know what's happening. And then you just change it and then everything clears up. And that is just wonderful to see. So I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you very much for sharing that. And thank you so much for the very generous super chat. It's very kind of you. Pedro, thank you very much for the super chat. Didn't see a question. Maybe if it's, I didn't see one in the chat, but it might show up. Kim Kraft, thank you very much for the super chat. You're the best and appreciate it. Well, thank you, Kim. That's really nice. And it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining today. Lynn Pogue, have you seen, thank you for the super chat, first of all. She asked, have you seen any major improvements in patients with Parkinson's disease using a carnivore diet? How's your dad doing? Desperately trying to help my 52-year-old husband who was recently diagnosed. I have seen good results. My father is very good and he's not progressed in his Parkinson's, has been very stable for the last 6 years, which is great. Normally Parkinson's absolutely progresses. And so that, he's not as spry as he used to be, but has not really gotten worse that I can see. And so that's really good. And that's very, very reassuring to see. And I have seen people certainly sort of put a halt on things, certainly improve cognition, certainly improve overall health, which helps you deal with a horrible condition like Parkinson's. Studies show that higher LDL cholesterol is actually protective against Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So, doing these sorts of things, are likely sort of related in that sense. You're eating a lot more meat. You're maybe not eating carbs. When you fast, your lipids go up, your LDL goes up. When you go on ketogenic diets, your LDL goes up. And that's a metabolic issue. That's not really just because you're eating fat. But, in those diets, you are eating fat. You're eating meat and you're eating fat, which is good for your brain. You're also going in ketosis, which is good for your brain. So all of these things are beneficial. And I have seen this in sort of patients, and my father, which is very nice to see. I don't have too many patients with Parkinson's directly that I treat in the clinic, so it's harder for me to give more of a definitive answer than that. But yes, I have seen it improve people, and theoretically, it should improve. It's you're giving fat and cholesterol and nutrients to your brain, so that it can grow and repair and function properly. And so you're getting rid of these neurotoxins, you're getting rid of these other harmful agents that are going to derail your brain. And your brain's going to be able to get on with it. And you're going to be able to heal from a lot of things. There is such a thing as damage done. Hopefully at 52 and recently diagnosed, he can stop that in its tracks. And I hope he does. And so, it's not going to hurt him anyway, and it could very well help him. It has helped other people, and it will help him in 1,000 other ways and improve his life in so many other ways that even if it doesn't help the Parkinson's, it's going to make his life with Parkinson's a lot better. And so there's really nothing to lose. May as well try it. It's going to help him either way, and hopefully it helps his Parkinson's as well. And good luck to him. I really hope that he does well. So Mike Sweet, thank you for the super chat. My mother is 67, diagnosed with urethral cancer this week, standard Canadian diet, and she has low blood sugar. Any dangers with carnivore? I've been trying to feed her small bits of info on carnivore and metabolic therapy. No, I don't think there's any risk to carnivore. I think there's only benefit. So, low blood sugar, a lot of this comes from reactive hypoglycemia. You eat carbohydrates, your insulin goes up, and this drives your blood sugar down, and you can't get it back up unless you eat more carbs, and you're just in this whole carb cycle, which is not where you want to be. So you get out of that, you just start eating meat. You don't eat any carbs, any sugar, any sweeteners, any alcohol, and your blood sugar will normalize as long as you're not taking medications like insulin or others that can lower your blood sugar. And so that's what I would do. I would show her my interview with Professor Thomas Seyfried of Boston College. That's spelled Seyfried. He's one of the world's experts on cancer biology, and the ketogenic metabolic therapy is something that he promotes and shows works both preclinically and clinically. There are clinical trials in humans in a number of different cancers showing that this is very effective, or at least beneficial. And so, yes, I would definitely try that. If it was my mom, I would more than try that. I would make that happen if it was my mom. But good luck to her. Obviously, this can't fix everyone, but this can certainly help. Once you have developed cancer, that's a very, very serious issue. And that is something that needs to be taken seriously, and you need to throw every gun at it that you can. And carnivore ketogenic metabolic therapy is definitely one of those guns that you need to throw at this. And it's been shown that it improves outcomes from chemo and radiation as well. So it's going to help, and it can. And I'm not saying not do other things, but this can help those other, because this can help those other things. So this isn't going to cure everyone. There is a point of no return. There's such a thing as damage done, but I think this can help people, and ketogenic metabolic therapy has helped people. And so this is something that I would absolutely try. No, I don't think there's any problems with it or risks or dangers in going carnivore in that situation. Having seen 2 lines, but I don't think carnivore is a dangerous in any circumstance. Unless you have acute pancreatitis, then you shouldn't be eating anything, carnivore or otherwise. Tulip O'Hare, thank you so much for the super chat. My boyfriend has prostatitis. He's 42 and a recovering alcoholic. Is red meat beneficial for the prostate? He does not eat any meat as of now. Oh yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of people that have had benign prostatic hyperplasia, and getting up to pee 4 or 5 times a night, and difficulty with that sense of urgency and issues all throughout the day, and then that can resolve. There'd be a number of reasons for that, but yes, that's definitely something that can help, and specifically, yes, meat does help, but specifically getting rid of all these other things that derange your metabolism and derange your body's normal working helps a lot. And so cutting out all those other things is very important. So yes, eating meat is very beneficial. It has all the things you need in the proportion that you need them, but the other things cause harm. And so you need to cut them out as well. And I do think that would help him. Yes. Yeah, he says, apologies. HS is hydradenitis. Jesus Christ, I cannot speak today. So anyway, that's what it is. Supervita, Jesus, or Tiva, Superativa. Jesus Christ, I cannot be.
Just let it go. Just let it go.
I cannot be more tongue-tied today. Right. That's not something I have too much experience with. I've seen sort of the one-off person here and there talk about how that improved their health, but I haven't really jumped into it in too much detail. I haven't really had patients that had to deal with that particularly. So it's really just online that I've seen people with that they've said that they've improved. But generally, a lot of skin conditions, acne conditions, eczema, psoriasis improve dramatically. I mean, that's one of the major benefits of a carnivore diet, is that you improve a lot of these skin conditions and skin issues. So that specific one, yes, I have seen people improve that quite dramatically. But again, I haven't had a patient myself that has had that. So it's really just people that I've seen and spoken to online, but tons and tons and tons of people have improved their acne, improved their eczema, improved their rosacea, improved their psoriasis, things like that. So I would expect that to get better. Yeah.
Of course, we know that's all just anecdotal, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All 10,000 of them, so, but the thing is what studies are meant to do. They don't beget reality. You don't publish something that this is now law. It's not like common law or stare decisis, in legal terms, where it's just like, this is precedent. So because some asshole made a wrong decision over here, and we all have to make this wrong decision every other time, that's stupid. So we'll go by precedent. That's retarded. If it's wrong, it's wrong. You decide it on that day. And so you get these studies, and it's not precedent. Oh, no, that's just what it is. Well, no, because if you say, okay, it helps you make a decision and on how you're going to live your life, and what medications you're going to take, and what you're going to eat, and what you're going to do, and what exercise you're going to do, and what way, and what timing. And if you take that information and you apply it to your life, and it gives the exact opposite outcome that you were told that it would. Well, maybe the study was wrong. And so, that's what I would say here. So if you're saying, oh, that's not going to help this, whatever, okay, but it did. So you're dumb. And that's all you really got to say to that. Pedro, thanks for the super chat. I think this other one didn't get attached. Eating just beef and fat help cure Sjogren's. Yes. So Sjogren's is an autoimmune disease that absolutely I've seen helped by a carnivore diet. I have yet to see an autoimmune issue that doesn't improve on a complete elimination diet like a carnivore diet, going down to just red meat and water. Anyone with an autoimmune issue will do optimally on red meat and water with a lot of fat, and especially grass-fed fat like tallow or butter. Most people will do fine with butter. Some people may even react to the butter. So just see how you go yourself. But yes, I absolutely think that would help your Sjogren's, definitely. And then lucky last will be Jamie McCullough. Thank you very much, Jamie, for the super chat. How is it possible for me to eat 25 pounds of meat in 10 days and only have 2 small poops and lose 6 pounds and not be constipated? Magic, obviously, some sort of, a wizard did it, but the thing is that you're absorbing 98% of the meat that you're eating, because you're not eating it with a bunch of plants that disrupt your digestion, fiber that blocks 30% of the absorption, protease inhibitors, phytic acid, oxalates, all these different sorts of things, that tannins that will bind and block you from absorbing your food, and you're not taking it with a bunch of fiber. So meat, when eaten alone, you absorb nearly 100% of it, like 98% of it. If you take out the gristle and you're just eating the soft muscle meat and the soft fat without the gristle, you'll absorb basically 100% of that. And so you almost won't have any sort of stools. And that was the point of a Salisbury steak back in the 1800s, was you ground up hamburger meat in such a way that it filtered out that tough gristle, and you only had the soft meat. And then you added butter to that, because oftentimes the fat was stuck to the gristle. And so you needed to add in more fat. And that was because, people with like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and these horrible digestive issues, they had to just completely rest their gut. Absolutely. They could not have anything going through there. And so when you got rid of the gristle, you would absorb 100% of it. So you wouldn't go to the bathroom at all. So contrast that with plants that, around 95% of it is fiber, and you can't digest it. You can't break it down. It has to come out. So you're eating a bunch of plants with fiber in it. 95% of that has to come out the other end. The converse, is completely inverse with meat. You're absorbing 98% of it. Only 2% is coming out, or so. And so 25 pounds in 10 days. And, let's think about that. So 25 pounds, 2% of that, you're just talking about, like, what is that? Like just half a pound, something like that. It's not much. It's half a pound. So, you're going to have half a pound of stuff come out in 10 days. That's not much, right? So 2 small poops and lose 6 pounds. Yeah. And so, constipation isn't about the frequency. It's about the consistency. And so if those are soft, that means you're eating enough fat, a little bit extra fat's coming out, and you're keeping that all soft. And so that's great. So that's why you're absorbing 98% of the meat that you're eating. You eat less gristle, and you'll have even less than that come out. So, well done with that. It's really funny. People just really can't get their heads around that. You see the vegans like freaking, oh my God, what's going on? This must be terrible. Pooping as a carnivore. It's like, yeah, you're just jealous, that we don't have to crap 8 times a day, and just like, what else are you doing in your life? You're eating 6 meals a day. You're crapping 10 times a day. What do you don't even have time to like get a job. No one of these people are just trolling on the internet all the time. They can't even, have time to work. You're just sitting on the toilet, just going, oh my God, you guys suck. So it's like, it just doesn't make any damn sense. Think about how much of your life you get back now where you're not just sitting on the toilet all the time. My God. I had a friend of mine that I played rugby with, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, you know, the more poops a day, like the better." I'm like, I don't see how that follows. And I was just like, "So you go up?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go like 6 times a day." I'm like, "What?" Like I was appalled, you know, because for me at the time, I wasn't full carnivore then, but I always just really only ate meat. It was like once a week, you know. That was always normal. And you know, and that was the thing. It's just like, "Oh, are you regular?" It's like, "Yeah, it's regular. It's every Wednesday, regular." You know, and you know, so, um, but yeah, I just God, I just I at the time I was just appalled. I was just like, that just sounds awful. You know,
I have
that
a
you'd
thought
have to
about
do
that.
that all the time. Yeah,
I would wonder, is it one of the prevalences of like colon disruption or colon cancer, or even perhaps ruptures, that we just use our colons too damn much? You know, I
I
mean,
think
like
so.
going to the toilet all the daggum time like that, it's got to do damage.
I absolutely think so. There have been studies, you know, looking at, you know, doing colonoscopies on thousands of people and looking at the risk factors, and they found that constipation wasn't a risk factor, meat wasn't a risk factor, fat intake wasn't a risk factor. All these things weren't risk factors, but the two things that were increased number of bowel motions a week, more than 15 bowel motions a week. So, you know, on average, just over 2 a day, and more fiber. So the more fiber people ate, you know, the more you have to, you know, excrete. And so I think you're just overworking your colon is really what it is. You're just overworking it, overdoing it, and you're just wearing it out. Just like heart failure, you're just sort of overworking your heart, just pushing it against high blood pressure, high gradient, and you're not giving yourself good food anyway. So the tissue starts to break down anyway, and you're just putting under too much stress, and it just starts to fail. And so that was the risk factors for diverticulosis, which is sort of a failure of the distal colon, which then causes outpouching of your distal colon, which can then rupture, become infected, and cause all these sorts of problems. So, and constipation, they've found different interventional studies with fiber that have actually shown that more fiber caused more symptomatic bloating and constipation, and actually getting rid of fiber improved symptoms, eliminating fiber eliminated symptoms. So this is just like blocks of wood. This is a bunch of sawdust. They actually add sawdust to many foods to up the fiber profile, because again, fiber is good for you, isn't it? And it's an essential nutrient, so you have to have it. So they add sawdust because, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, sawdust is fiber. It's cellulose. That's what it is. So obviously that's good for you then. So that's a bit crazy. But yeah, so they'll add it to that. And that just makes bulk. And that was the thing. Oh, you want bulk, and then your bowel can push against this. Okay, was pushing against this. You're not eating enough fat, so it's getting rock hard, and it's just a big block. I mean, that's what's going to cause obstructions. Really, is getting these big blocks of wood stuck in your colon. And so, and you know, as we age, you know, people get neurogenic colons. They don't move as fast. They don't move as well, and so they'll get harder and drier. And you're eating all this fiber, and you're taking more fiber to push it through, and you're just getting bigger and bigger blockages. So yeah, I think that's definitely not a great thing. Is in general, I haven't had fiber in, you know, bloody 6 years. So you know, and I've been better than I've ever been. So yeah, you definitely don't need it anyway. 70% of animals on Earth eat other animals. They're carnivores. They don't get any fiber. And in fact, herbivores that eat fiber, you know, break down some of that fiber. So they don't break down it fully, but a cow is really good at that. So their stool is very, very wet and sloppy. Whereas like at horses, they're not as good. They can't digest it as much. So it comes out just as balls of grass, you know, but you know, at least for the cow, I mean, you know, you can't say that it's fiber that's moving this along, because they've broken down most of the fiber, you know. I'm sure some of it's still around, because it's very hard to break down. That's the whole point, is that fiber is it's very difficult to turn plant tissue into animal tissue. Very difficult. Mm-hmm. So if you're not biologically designed to do that, you know, stay in your lane, you know, let the pros do it, and then eat them, you know, and you'll be fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tasty.
Cool. All right, man. I should run. Sort of went a little over time, but I just wanted to get to the super chat.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you all. I will be doing another live, just answering questions from the audience in the morning, my morning, your evening. So it'll be at probably 9 a.m. my time. I think that works out to being 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Pretty sure. But either way, I'll put it up. I'll post it up. It'll be around that time anyway, maybe an hour off, because I think daylight savings just hit us, so we might be a bit off, or I might start a bit earlier. Well, who knows? Anyway, I'm gonna do it in the morning. Guys, look out for that. Hope to see you there. And Matt, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, it's great. Be bold, everybody.
Cool. All right, we'll see you guys. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it.